Paul had a real care for the Corinthian church. He had been there for 2 years during his second missionary journey, and it looks like he had written a number of letters to them before 2 Corinthians. No other church seems to have had this amount of attention over such a long period of time. Yet he was criticized time and again. We get a sense of how hurtful this was to him in today's reading from 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 7 to 12. Have I committed an offence in abasing myself that ye might be exalted? Because I have preached to you the gospel of God freely. I robbed other churches, taking wages of them to do you service. And when I was present with you and wanted, I was chargeable to no man, for that which was lacking to me the brethren which came from Macedonia supplied. And in all things I have kept myself from being burdensome unto you, and so will I keep myself. As the truth of Christ is in me, no man shall stop me of this boasting in the regions of Achaia. Wherefore? Because I love you not? God knoweth. But what I do, that I will do, that I may cut off occasion from them which desire occasion, that wherein they glory, they may be found even as we. The type of criticism that Paul came in for from the Corinthians, and perhaps more particularly from the super apostles, seems to have been threefold. They accused him of a lack of consistency. His letters say they are weighty and powerful, but his bodily presence is weak and his speech contemptible in chapter 10, verse 10. Then they accused him of a lack of candour, boasting of things without our measure, that is, of other men's labours, in verse 15 of chapter 10. In today's reading, the accusation seems to have been a lack of care. When he was chargeable to no man, verse 9, they said it was because I love you not, in verse 11. Paul had good reason for acting as he did, but the people who accused him of wrong did so by completely misrepresenting him. The issue in these verses was the fact that Paul did not take financial support from the Corinthian believers. Previously, he had written about the fact that I make the gospel of Christ without charge, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 18. In this passage, I have kept myself from being burdensome unto you, in verse 9. And the reason for this was that I may cut off occasion from them which desire occasion, in verse 12. People just wanted to point the finger at him. When Paul came from Athens, he knew the way that the philosophers and the intelligentsia operated. They provided their knowledge, wisdom, and insights at a price. Given that, he decided not to follow such a practice. He decided not to burden the Corinthians in order to demonstrate the difference in the gospel message that he brought compared to other messages. And he was rather glad that he did this. No man shall stop me of this boasting in the regions of Achaia, verse 10. Even though the super apostles might have said that because Paul did not take money, it showed that he was not really a proper or genuine apostle. Paul loved the Corinthians too much to worry about that. Because I love you not, God knoweth, he says in verse 11. Now, there was a song on the go about 60 years ago or so that included the line, money makes the world go round. In many walks of life, that is the case, but it should not be the case among Christians. We remember what the Lord Jesus said when they were selling animals in the temple at Jerusalem. Make not my Father's house an house of merchandise, John chapter 2, verse 16. Money can be used in Christian service, but it is just as likely to be misused. When Christians start fundraising, selling goods, or charging fees, I always get nervous. To me, it gives the wrong idea about the Christian gospel. Remember the words of the Lord Jesus? Freely ye have received, freely give. Matthew chapter 10, verse 8. That's how we should serve, to give generously and openly, and not to get or amass wealth or money or stuff for ourselves.